Hello everyone. In this video we're going to talk about the idea of living without end, living forever. So I'm reading something and I'm going to share this with you. It says aging is a disease. Now where have we heard that before? We've heard about reversing aging. If we think of Aubrey de Grey, there's a lot of people working on this. What's nice to me is that when you go on Google and just type in reversing aging, there's a lot of research being done now. There was a time not long ago where this idea was made fun of. I'll call it bullies, lots of bullies on the internet just making fun of things. There was even entire websites made that were just making fun of the idea. But that happens with everything, right? All interesting ideas are attacked at first and made fun of. So anyway, let's go ahead and read this. It says, unlocking the immortality gene. Aging is a disease. And again, look up Aubrey de Grey to learn about this as well. It's another gentleman working on this research. I don't know who's running the program right now, but he's someone who was starting this program. He went back to school to pursue learning about reversing aging and things like this. But this here is something else. This is a different source. But I think this is a different source. Maybe I don't know the source of this. I just know I'm sharing this with you because this was shared with me, and I like sharing information. I like sharing thought experiments. So here's our thought experiment of the day. Aging is a disease. When I say reverse the aging process, I'm not talking about dreary cosmetic fixes, toupees and hair plugs, tooth whitening, Botox, tummy tucks, wrinkle creams, and plastic surgery to hide crow's feet. This is about molecular science and how it's successfully carrying the fight to live forever directly to the source, into the genetic code itself. When you set aside accidents, trauma, and injuries, 7 of the top 10 causes of death in America are age-related. And you can trace the root cause of all of these conditions to one specific cellular defect in our genes. Let me explain. Genes determine our eye color, our height, our structure of our bodies, literally everything. And all of our genes are strung together in a long sequence called DNA, the famous double helix. Our DNA is extremely fragile. If it experiences the slightest damage, our bodies will not function like they're designed to, which is why it's enclosed in a protective case, what we call chromosomes. They're in the nucleus of every cell in our body. On the tips of each chromosome, you'll find tiny cap-like structures called telomeres. Their job is to keep the chromosomes tightly wrapped around our DNA so it doesn't mutate. A defect with these telomeres is the primary reason we get weaker and sicker over time. Here's how to understand this. As we age, cells die off and replenished. As we age, cells die off and are replenished through a process called cytokinesis. It is during cytokinesis that cells repeatedly duplicate. They make copies of themselves. Now, in a perfect world, each and every time a cell reproduces, each copy would be identical to each other. But that's not what happens. Every time your cells duplicate, your telomeres, the protection for your DNA, shrinks just a little. So over the years, with each successive copy, the telomeres keep shrinking, with the result that the DNA gets more exposed and your cells become poorer and poorer copies of themselves. Unlocking the immortality gene. Eventually, the DNA is left exposed and unprotected. Because of this shrinking defect in our telomeres, human cells can only divide about 60 times before our DNA becomes unreadable. Eventually, all we're left with are old, worn-out copies of our original cells. This is why we age and die. How to live forever. Does that sound interesting to you? It sounds interesting to me. The idea that we can live forever isn't as far-fetched as it might first seem. Science has already discovered creatures such as lobsters, sea urchins, and certain jellyfish that display near immortality. But here's the amazing thing. It's not just lobsters and sea urchins that have this immortality gene. Every cell in your body has it too. This gene, once switched on, creates a protein called telomerase. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. Telomerase. Telomerase. After cytokinesis, telomerase goes to work immediately, restoring the telomeres to their full length. Interesting. Restoring the telomeres to their full length. Wow. The biological term for this is immortalization. The biological term for this is immortalization. When telomerase is present, each cell is immortalized. It's able to function at 100% full strength, no matter how many times it has copied itself. The 1984 discovery of telomerase earned Dr. Carol W. Greider, Greider, and Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn in the 2009 Nobel Prize in Medicine. The trouble is, unlike lobsters, we were born. Unlike lobsters, when we're born, our immortality gene is switched off. And because it's switched off, our bodies are unable to produce the telomerase that works to restore our telomeres to their proper length after our cells divide. To live forever, then, what is needed is a way to switch the immortality gene on. Inspired by the discovery made by Greider and Blackburn, scientists all over the world set out to see if they could indeed switch it on. They first experimented with mice. See supplemental section of Mice and Men. The results were so encouraging, they soon began doing tests in humans. Turning back the biological clock. The pivotal pilot study was a double-blind, placebo-controlled 24-week clinical trial of very small levels of telomerase activation in 36 men between the age of 60 and 85. After 6 weeks, the men's vision had improved by 20%. At 12 weeks, symptoms of erectile dysfunction were disappearing. Excuse me. Okay, where was I? At 12 weeks, symptoms of erectile dysfunction were disappearing, and 24 weeks in, they had a 14% increase in the measurable strength of their immune system. That's significant, right? Because the immune system is what helps us fight. It helps keep us healthy. By the end of the trial, the men had literally aged backward on a biological level between 5 and 20 years. This was an incredible result. For the first time, science had found a way to stop time in its tracks. Humankind stood on this doorstep of immortality. Unfortunately, there was a major setback. As you may know, everyone has some cells with genetic mutations. Specifically, these mutations produce a type of RNA which can lead to cancer. Switching on telomerase made these mutated cells immortal too. It gave them the ability to replicate infinitely. The cure for aging gave you cancer. On the surface, this looks like a catastrophic roadblock. Immortality okay, where was I? My apologies. Let's see, where was I? Switching on the telomerase made these mutated cells immortal too. It gave them the ability to replicate infinitely. The cure for aging gave you cancer. On the surface, this looks like a catastrophic roadblock. Immortality is within reach, and we were stopped dead in our tracks. But the solution doctors needed was already being developed. Geneticists had already begun searching for some way to switch on telomerase so that we wouldn't age and die, and at the same time switch off the RNA that causes cancer. Thanks to the work of one young geneticist, there had already been tantalizing hints that specific genes could, in fact, be switched off. His name was Rich Jorgensen, R-I-C-H, and Jorgensen is Jorgensen. And he discovered that by injecting a specific gene for purple into a petunia flower, he could get not a more purple petunia, but a completely white one. It was as if the injected purple gene and the homegrown purple gene were interfering with each other to silence the action of all purple genes. Other scientists began to explore the concept of gene silencing. Very interesting. Let's see what this says. Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn accepts the Nobel Prize in Medicine in Stockholm, Sweden on December 10th, 2009. Carol Greider, Greider, and Jack Szostak, Szostak, also received Nobel Prizes that year for the discovery of how chromosomes are protected by telomeres and the enzyme telomerase of mice and men. Now, mice don't look much like us, but when you get down to their DNA, we're about 90% similar, and parts of our genome are actually 99% identical. At the Spanish National Cancer Research Center, doctors successfully switched on the immortality gene in a group of mice by injecting them with modified DNA that activated high levels of the telomerase gene. The normal lifespan of a mouse is 2 years. However, with telomerase protecting their chromosomes, in other words, with the immortality with the immortality gene switched on, they lived 40% longer. That's the equivalent of adding an additional 32 years to a human life. At Harvard Medical School, geneticist Dr. Ronald D. Pino led a team that repeated this experiment with almost identical results. After 4 weeks of treatment, their conclusions were stunning. Aged mice had undergone remarkable signs of rejuvenation. Their cells experienced a powerful regenerative response. Muscle tissue was rejuvenated. They described what they saw as an unprecedented reversal of age-related decline. That's amazing. That is amazing. Then in 1998, two American biologists named Andrew Fire and Craig C. Mello solved the problem. RNAi, our molecular snipers. What Fire and Mello discovered, and what would win them the Nobel Prize, was a process they called RNA interference, or RNAi. RNAi is a natural mechanism for silencing specific genes. Genes provide cells with the instructions for making proteins, and it is proteins, or more specifically proteins made abnormally because of mutated cells that are the cause of most human disease, such as cancer. I'm going to read that again. RNAi is a natural mechanism for silencing specific genes. Genes provide cells with the instructions for making proteins, and it is proteins, or more specifically, proteins made abnormally because of mutated cells, that are the cause of most human disease, such as cancer. But when a gene is silenced, the cell stops making the protein specific by that gene, thereby reducing the occurrence and or symptoms of disease. Imagine you've just received telomerase therapy. The immortality gene in your cells is switched on, and your telomeres are being kept intact. Your cells are reproducing with 100% accuracy, and you are not experiencing the effects of aging. The problem is, one of these cells begins producing the cancer RNA, and thanks to telomerase, this cell is also immortal. Soon your body is riddled with out-of-control cancer cells. But now, thanks to RNAi-enabled gene silencing, doctors have acquired the ability to neutralize the cancerous RNA without inhibiting the ability of telomerase to maintain telomere length. First, doctors identify the cancerous RNA that has corrupted your cells. They then create tiny molecules that are specifically designed to bind to the bad RNA inside the cell and interfere with its action and silence its effect. RNAi, the final piece of the immortality puzzle. When Rich Jorgensen set out to experiment with genes to create his more purple petunia, he thought it would be relatively easy. After all, he already knew which petunia gene produced purple pigment, and he knew how to insert that purple gene into petunia DNA. He expected then that by inserting the purple gene, he would be able to grow himself a dazzlingly purple petunia. So imagine Jorgensen's amazement when, instead of extra purple flowers, what sprouted from the soil in his California lab were white petunias, not a speck of purple in them. This was the exact opposite of what he expected. The petunia was a big puzzle, Eric Lander, a biology professor at MIT, told Robert Krulwich of Nova. Nobody understood why, when you add an extra gene for purple, you should not get more purple, but less purple. It took a decade of brilliant scientists to finally work out what was going on. They concluded that when the petunia cell saw the invading purple gene, the cell's internal defenses decided that the gene was an enemy and killed it. Not only that, the cell went on to kill any other gene that even remotely looked like the invader. So the petunia's defense system killed off every purple gene. The normal and Jorgensen's injected ones. The end result was a petunia with 0 purple genes, a petunia white as snow. Quite by accident, Rich Jorgensen had discovered RNA interference, or RNAi. The petunia's defense mechanism was interfering with the production of purple pigment. It was switching off the gene for purple. Rich Jorgensen with his white and purple petunias. Unlocking the immortality gene. The most important, though, I've kept my eyes on the various deals that were being made. Who was investing where? Which partnerships look most solid? When would the time be right to pull the trigger and recommend the best company? Well, the right time has now arrived. SANOFI-SANYSESNY, a global pharmaceutical leader based in Paris, France, and with U.S. headquarters in Bridgewater, New Jersey, stands at the pinnacle of the RNAi therapy space. The company represents the single best way to capitalize on the 595.56 billion global market for RNAi therapies. As I am about to show you, Sanofi, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. Please look into this yourself, the correct pronunciation. As I'm about to show you, Sanofi is poised to see its revenues soar as much as 3,628% on the strength of its anti-aging pipeline and its RNAi therapeutics. What's truly fascinating is that Sanofi achieved its inviolable position in the RNAi markets through some of the shrewdest, most forward-looking investments, acquisitions, and partnerships I've ever come across. Specifically, the company has put together substantial strategic partnerships in 3 much smaller companies, each of which are at the forefront of RNAi technology. Those companies are Alnylam Pharmaceuticals, ALNYLAM Pharmaceuticals, NASDAQ ALNY, Regulus Therapeutics, NASDAQ RGLS, and Genzyme, I don't know how to pronounce that, GENZYME. Let's take a look at these partnerships together, and I'll show you why they're so critical for RNAi. Sanofi Strategic Partnership Number 1, ALNYLAM Pharmaceuticals, founded in 2002. Alnylam Pharmaceuticals out of Cambridge, Massachusetts, is focused on commercializing treatments based on RNAi for genetic diseases. Alnylam's first contract alone, which is already signed, could catapult them from just over 19 million to 750 million in just the next 3 years. Alnylam made a vast contribution to the immortality field by developing a strategy to... Okay, I think that's it, because it ends here. So it's not... This is all that there is for this. This is all that I have access to. Let's see what this says. Immortal animals. Let's read what this says. That we may soon be able to live forever is not some far-fetched idea. In fact, you might be surprised to learn that we've already identified 9 species that have a naturally occurring immortality gene. These animals simply don't age. Look at a lobster. As lobsters get older, they continue to grow larger, stronger, and more fertile. Aging is not a death sentence for them. In fact, there are only 2 main ways lobsters die. Either they get eaten by us or another animal, or they grow so large their own shells kill them. Wow, I didn't know that. So maybe there can be a shell transplant to allow lobsters to keep living, right? However, it demonstrates, that's just an idea I was thinking of myself right now. However, it demonstrates that if you removed outside threats, lobsters can nearly achieve immortality. In fact, there is another animal, a specific type of jellyfish that already has. It's called TURRIPSISDOHRNII, also known as the immortal jellyfish. Anytime it gets sick or injured, it sinks to the ocean floor, transforms back into a polyp, and reemerges as a newborn. It biologically turns back the hands of time. Another animal with an immortality gene is the red sea urchin. As it ages, it regenerates damaged parts infinitely. It never really dies. What science is working to perfect is nothing more than a way to transfer some of the biology from these creatures into human cells. This is very interesting. I don't know what the original source of this is. I'm going to look for that. And if I do share this video on YouTube, I'm going to just say unlocking the immortality gene. I think that's what that might be the title. I'm also going to research some of the on the internet and see if I can find this original article. But anyway, I just wanted to. This is just some thoughts. This is kind of like a what could we call this? I'm sharing this for educational purposes, entertainment purposes, and I'm sharing this to also as a thought experiment to help encourage thinking about solutions in many different ways. It's very important that everyone's ideas about how to arrive at a solution have equal importance, so long as it's not harming anyone in the process, right? And so please make video responses to this, sharing your thoughts and ideas about how we can continue this kind of work, and where you see what direction you would take it, and how you see solutions, us continuing to work towards solutions in so many creative ways. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye, everybody. Bye, everyone. Bye.